that they will only deal with the central government. Barely 3% of the country's 1.3 billion people have been vaccinated.
New Zealand has suspended its quarantine-free travel with the Australian state of Victoria. The move comes as Melbourne deals with new local COVID-19 cases. The travel bubble pause will be in place for at least 72 hours while Australian officials work to find the missing link in a growing cluster.
In the last few instances, we haven't rushed into a pause, and it's not always a place that we advise we need to go to. But in this case, we've just looked at the emerging situation and in particular looked at the measures that Victoria has put in place, and we feel that it's proportionate and precautionary for New Zealand to put that pause in place now.
5 new local cases have been reported in Melbourne, taking the cluster to 9. It's prompted the state government to reintroduce restrictions. They include mandatory wearing of masks indoors and limits on both private and public gatherings. Thousands have been ordered to self-isolate and undergo COVID-19 tests. Health alerts have been issued for several sites, including one of the largest shopping centres in the country. The outbreak ends Victoria's run of 0 cases for nearly 3 months. It was the hardest hit state during a second wave late last year. It accounted for about 70% of total cases and 90% of deaths. The state only controlled the outbreak after imposing one of the world's longest and strictest lockdowns.
And returning to news on India, no respite for the country as it braces for its second powerful storm in less than 2 weeks. Cyclone Yas is gathering strength along the east coast. Nearly 2 million people are being moved to shelters before it hits. The storm is set to make landfall tomorrow north of Odisha. It's forecast to batter West Bengal state and Bangladesh. Yas has already intensified into a severe cyclonic storm. Strong winds, heavy rains and flooding are expected. More than 100 disaster relief teams have been mobilized. The Navy and Coast Guard are also on standby. Ports, refineries and power plants have been told to suspend operations. Pregnant women and children have been sent to government hospitals. Fears are growing that the storm will hit the nation's COVID-19 vaccination drive as well. Some private centres have already suspended rollout.
Officials say that more teams are being sent this time, keeping in mind how the COVID-19 challenge is also one to contend with. So the government of West Bengal and Odisha saying that these are routine drills that have now been put into works. But of course, it is a big challenge because preparation for this cyclone and dealing with this aftermath is obviously going to distract officials from the other big challenge they're facing, which is COVID-19 and rising cases in these 2 regions. Officials saying that it's proving very difficult to convince locals, especially villagers, to move out of the path of the cyclone and move to these relief centers that have been set up. Many people expressing apprehensions that if they move to these relief centers, they could potentially contract COVID-19 there. Of course, the government saying they're doing everything they can to enforce safe distancing norms at these centers. Occupancy at most of these centers has been cut by half, but there are concerns that with so many people staying in such close proximity for God knows how long, these centers could become super spreaders. And the government says it's doing everything it can to prevent that. It's handing out masks to people who are being evacuated. But of course, the concern is also going to be the aftermath of the cyclone. Where will these people go once the cyclone has made landfall? How long these relief operations will need to continue and how long these people will need shelter? All of these, of course, factors that complicate an already complicated fight.
The COVID-19 pandemic has decimated tourism in Kashmir. The Indian-controlled part of the region usually sees hordes of tourists visiting at this time of the year. But tourism has come to a complete standstill. Dal Lake, also known as Jewel in the Crown of Kashmir, is popular among foreign photographers and water sports enthusiasts. Today, boatmen say they have no money.
यहाँ पर सब खासकर हमें ये टूरिस्ट के साथ करता है, हाउस बोट वाले, शिकारे वाले, ज़्यादातर हमें पर असर पड़ता है। हमको और कुछ काम वाम नहीं है, हमको ऐसे टूरिस्ट पड़ता है। मगर ये तो बदकिस्मती है, खुदा का कहर है, इसको कोई नहीं कह सकता है। ये पता नहीं कब खत्म हो जाएगा।
Boatmen aren't the only locals affected. Hotels in the Kashmir Valley have reported 0 visitors. Hoteliers say rooms are usually fully occupied. Taxi drivers are also feeling the pinch with no passengers. 450,000 locals dependent on tourists for their income.
उससे अबो भी होते हैं, तो उनको मैनेज करना बहुत मुश्किल होता है। उनका खाली सैलरी की बात नहीं होती है, सिर्फ उनका खाना पीना रहना, बाकी चीज़ें, उनको बहुत सारी चीज़ें देखनी पड़ती है कि ये चीज़ें हमारे ऊपर एक बोझ बन जाता है फिर उसके बाद, क्योंकि वहाँ से जब कोई इनकम आती नहीं है तो यहाँ से फिर इसको मैनेज करना बहुत मुश्किल हो जाता है।
देखिए जनाब, हमारा 2 साल हो गया ऐसा ही, हमारा बच्चे भी ख़राब हो गया इसमें। हमारा टूरिस्ट यहाँ आते हैं TRC टूरिस्ट एक्सीडेंट नंबर 1 में, मगर जिस वक्त हमारा कोई सहारा नहीं है इस वक्त भी।
Still to come, more efforts to increase spaces for preschoolers in Singapore. Bringing 24/7 convenience to the heartlands. But is the new kid on the block here to stay?
Should you use your CPF for property investment? Come to the Singapore Property Show 2021 to learn more from leading property market experts in 40 informative webinars. Our top flight speakers will be covering a wide range of topics to help you make a most informed decision. How do you make the most of your CPF for property investment? Are ECs still the golden goose? Is owning multiple properties only for the wealthy? What kind of property is in demand by district? Get these answers and more. Plus, stand to win $8,000 worth of cash prizes. Join us at our webinars this weekend on 29th and 30th May for essential property investment advice. What are you waiting for? Visit sps2021.99.co to register now. The Singapore Property Show 2021 is proudly organised by MediaCorp and our esteemed partners.
There was a huge manhunt for this man.
Podcast producer Rovik Roberts investigates a mysterious murder from the past.
This is a spicy case. Spicy.
To understand how Singapore turned from a city of vice.
Singapore was a Chicago of the East. Clashes and shootings were rampant.
Into one of the safest in the world.
When the caning started, holy smoke, it was a game changer.
Into the Vault 3, Wednesday on CNA.
From the top stories in Asia.
A quicker, portable way of testing for COVID-19 in just 5 minutes.
To breaking news in the US and Europe.
US President-elect Joe Biden is set to formally introduce his top economic team.
With an eye on markets opening across the world.
Wall Street's major indices all closed the month with double-digit percentage gains.
It's the one bulletin that offers you a global perspective. World Tonight, daily, on CNA.
It's a human catastrophe of epic proportions. Thousands are dying every day in India as it battles the raging coronavirus crisis.
हमारे सामने उन्होंने दम तोड़ा, हम कुछ नहीं कर पाए।
मेरी वाइफ चली गई, मेरे दोनों ब्रदर इन लॉ गए और मदर इन लॉ एक्सपायर्ड हो गई।
Has India lost control of the pandemic?
If you step out right now, you step out to die.
India's COVID catastrophe. Insight, Thursday on CNA.
I'm getting my COVID-19 vaccine.
Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in.
And documenting all my side effects.
Bam, the soreness set in.
But with cases of infection among those who are vaccinated, how protected am I?
Now what we're seeing are actually mutants, which are quite different from the original strand.
Talking Point, Friday 9:30 p.m. on CNA.
Updating business now. Malaysia says it can meet this year's growth target of 6 to 7.5% after its third lockdown ends. The forecast comes even as tighter restrictions are being imposed from today. Economic Affairs Minister Mustafa Mohamad says it's possible if the curbs bring the COVID-19 situation under control. A fresh data shows Malaysia's leading index surged a record 17.3% in March on year. This indicates the direction the economy is heading in the next few months. The data follows Q1 GDP, which contracted at a slower rate of 0.5%. But the recovery could be stalled as it enters a third lockdown. Melissa Go reports.
Bakri Yusof sells banana fritters to office crowds in Kuala Lumpur suburb. Compared to a total lockdown in March last year under the first movement control order, he's thankful at least under the MCO 3.0.